all of you guys know Semi, and hopefully all of you guys know ARM and Intel, but probably nobody knows who killed CASPA. So I thought I'd start just with one slide of clarification. We don't build wires. We're not part of the car industry. We're actually part of the semiconductor industry. The company provides embedded non-volatile memory, like embedded flash technology. Started in 2001 with 60 patents. Today, we're broadly available in a lot of foundries and IDMs with over 100 customers. Most of our business is actually in mobile phone. Even though we're not the main chip, we're in probably 8 out of the 15 main chips in the mobile phone. And also in security business, mostly defense and set-top box and business, which we'll talk about a little bit later. It's actually an interesting evolution for the industry. Amazingly enough, we're going to be in most of the DRAM soon, and you'll see in the next coming years. Like most of the startups here in the Valley, we're venture-backed. But hopefully, thankfully, we didn't need venture financing the last couple of years because that would have been a really hard business to be in. We grew the business 2x the last 2 years. So I think as Dr. Wang talked about the industry, I think we were one of the minority exceptions where the business grew 2x for us. And we're coming into this year with a really strong business. We're going to most likely grow double again. So with that, this is where CEOs get into trouble by introducing too many products. We're going to have 4 products coming out in the next 18 months, one of which I will give you a bit of a teaser. My marketing VP doesn't know about it, so don't tell her. So yeah, I've been in the IP business for the last 15 years, believe it or not, and I'll give my view of it. Okay. So in let's say early 1990s, if you remember Cascade or Compass, the first generation of IP business really is to help little guys to compete against the likes of Chips and Technology and Cirrus Logic. The big bad boys that have $500 million to build their CAT system. So it's gates and memory, nothing else. The A6 back then, if you remember the chipsets and graphics, really looked like this. It's a big bad chip with just gates and memory. Okay. A lot of companies made money in that. 1994, I joined the company to do exactly that. We licensed gates, memories, and IOs. And in 2000, what happened is there were a lot of transistors and not enough things to put in there, so people stuffed microprocessor in there. That's still not enough because the transistor is just growing fast. If you remember CMP in 0.5 micron, by the time we got to 0.13, we've gone 4 generations in 6.5 years. And so even with microprocessors in it, or embedded processor, ARM, MIPS, Lectra, ARC, Tensilica, there weren't enough transistors and usage. So you have to shrink the package. And so high-speed I/O came out, Rambus went public, Neurologic was acquired by Artisan, and the second generation of IP business really came out, and I founded a company called Lectra, ran it for 5.5 years, got sued by MIPS twice. And so if you look at the third generation, right, what we're doing right now is enabling non-volatile memory in there. We've learned the lesson that you can't integrate DRAM into just any generic IC. Unless you really pick the right application, DRAM is a very expensive value proposition. So we're not likely to put the entire NAND flash into SoC. The flash process is just very, very different. Just ask Intel. They lost a bunch of money on that. And so if you look at it, really, we're going to put a small amount of non-volatile memory there, so that when the chips boot up, they're not dumb as a doorknob. Right? You look at your PC camera, you look at your event manager, you look at most of the mobile phone ICs inside, even the power amplifier chip, which is supposed to be an ARM chip, like a mixed signal power chip, right? It's got a little tiny bit of E squared next to it. Okay. So really, the next thing is to put a little bit of non-volatile memory, and that's where KILPAS's business has come from the last couple years. We'll talk about that. Oops. And down the road, before KILPAS, I spent a little bit of time at USVP. I can tell you the industry, the venture industry, has pumped more than $2 billion into the next generation memory. If you have a great idea, somebody on Sand Hill is going to put another $200 million into your business, because we're all looking for that next magical memory that is permanent, doesn't require power, has the speed of an SRAM, capacity of DRAM or flash. Then the race to find the next memory is on. Okay. And of $2 billion, I can tell you, zero return has resulted from that. But we're going to put more. I'm sure of it. Okay. Now, before I get into sort of what's next, I'm going to use a different way of looking at the business, okay? And I get you out. So one of the things as we kind of go into the 40th year of semiconductor business, you start to feel a little bit tired. Okay, the big bad boys, one of them's in this room, makes all the money, and then the startups, are falling by the wayside, and so you get a lot of people who are cynical to say, okay, well, the semiconductor business is not interesting anymore, and let's go to SaaS, or let's go to social media. Well, so despite this cynicism, there's actually a ton of growth. If you compare telecom, datacom, software, and semiconductor, I would rather be in semiconductor. Okay, and because it is, by the way, I don't know if I agree with this. Okay, so but even if this is just grossly wrong, okay, semiconductor business just grows 3% a year. Okay, it will be a $315 billion business by 2015. That's not very far from today, if it just grows 3%. But if you look at telecom and datacom business, what Cisco is at, one of the biggest problems is that telecommunication, data communication serves a very focused purpose. That's all it does. It's like railway, it's like railroad, and it's like a car, and it's like shipping. Okay, the last three big business in the industry, none of them has grown that much, because you can't. What are you going to do with railroad once you can ship all the cargoes you need? It becomes very incremental. Not true with semiconductor. So now the question is why? When my son asked me, well, why are you in the semiconductor business? This is a question I try to answer myself, because if I can't answer that, I shouldn't be in this room. Okay. So the first clue, I believe, is you got to look into this correlation that has been very, very strong since 1988, 1989 time period, where the semiconductor growth up and down has tracked the GDP almost perfectly. Almost perfectly. With a couple exception of a couple years where inventory kind of gets out of whack, semiconductor growth tracks GDP. Okay. So that means if GDP growth is good, semiconductor business is going to be good. And for most of the forecaster and things, the world has become very volatile. Okay. but it's become the best in the recording history. Since we recorded GDP, which is about late 1800s, the world GDP has not had a 10-year continuous growth. The average for the last 10 years is 5%. That's a phenomenal growth. And semiconductor business is growing along with it. It's a phenomenon. I mean, when we are in there with our tape-out dates, inventory, price problems, we kind of forget that the business has grown pretty well. And the reason is that we spent our savings in electronics to make our lives better, easier, more comfortable. It's going to help us live longer. Yan was talking about the glucose monitoring and things. Okay, so I was in Carnegie Mellon just 3 weeks ago. They're working on semiconductor chips to repair people who have Alzheimer's disease. If you think about it, in about 15, 20 years, there will be no cancer. There will probably be cure for heart disease. I'm not sure we can eat as much as we want and not gain weight, but that's coming. Okay. But the one thing that people have had a hard time fixing is Alzheimer's, because it's the exercise of the brain that's really hard to do. So Carnegie Mellon is working on semiconductor products that basically replace the function of the brain. Okay. So for as long as semiconductor replaces human life, and for as long as human life is valuable, semiconductor is going to continue to grow with it. And I'm a firm believer of that. Right? So cars replace our legs with our foot. Right? So a lot of things replace a small part of what human lives really can do. Semiconductors, for the very first time, it's the only technology that tries to replace human. It's not going to. Okay. But we're a valuable commodity in the world, and so semiconductor is going to continue to grow. Okay, great news, right? Okay, so why is it so competitive, and why is it that very few companies make money? The next slide is going to hopefully be the punchline of my presentation. I'm going to quit. So this is a composition that my VP Marketing did. Okay, this is comparing semiconductor industry to the NASDAQ techs. So if you get all the tech companies together and you do a composite. Semiconductor companies average about $500,000 per employee. That's almost 20% better than the rest of the losers. Okay, so we as employees make more money for our companies than the other tech companies. We work harder. We also spend 2 percentage points more in R&D. Okay. That means, okay, if your company is paid, let's say, 15x earning, okay, 15x, that means your stock option could be 30-40% higher in price today if your boss just stops spending that much in R&D. But you know what happens when your boss doesn't spend in investment, right? You lose, you die. So the last 2% is hugely important for your company's survival. And as a result, we make less money. Okay? It's very, very simple. The net after-tax profit, semiconductor business make less money. Because we make less money, the investors also don't like the up and down volatility of investments. They also pay us less. For every dollar of revenue, we get paid 1.8 times in our stock price. The rest of the industry gets 2.1. Okay, so we work harder, invest more, make more money, get paid less. Okay, this is one of the problems. Well, I don't want to say it's a problem. It's a fact of our life. Okay, we work really hard to lower the cost to replace human functions. Okay, and other than a few exceptions, one of them's here, Broadcom, MediaTek, Samsung. If you look at foundry business, some of the people here in the foundry business, they made money 3 years out of 10. And this is when worldwide GDP has grown 5% year in, year out, every year. Okay. And startups, I was at US Venture Partners for a while before I joined, took the cable pass job. We've had more write-offs in semiconductor than any other because it's really hard for a startup to be successful. Okay. So to be successful, I think the last part which Dr. Nguyen talked about, which is you have to do all the good things that Dr. Nguyen said, and then you have to add that last little part, which is you have to add, something really new to help our lives at lower cost. And that's the part that's really, really hard. And that includes my business. So I'm going to use my business to kind of illustrate this. Sorry, this animation's all screwed up. You can count from the startup. So this is let's see. This is the process technology from the left to the right. This is the number of times that the data has to be stored in the chip. On the right-hand side is just the bulk capacity. Okay. So let's see. Every chip uses fuse, but we're not in the fuse business. You look at 40 nanometer. Starting from 40, we see big IDMs: Samsung, Hynix, Renesas, and then moving to the right, even bigger companies like TSMC, UMC. Okay. Start to say, hey, maybe laser fuse and E-fuse is probably not the right thing to do. We probably need to do some new type of fuse. That stuff, we do. Okay. But it has to be lower cost than electrical fuse. The analog guys use us. There's security things, the software to integrate, the software for the SoC and the software that's inside the microcontrollers. Everything says you have to reduce cost. The ones that are really obvious is this. Okay, so there's about $10 billion worth of E-squares and NOR flash. As far as I'm concerned, none of that doesn't need to be there. Okay, customers don't care about it and they don't want it. So it's our job to provide a technology so that customers who ship a PC camera chip doesn't need to tell the customer, hey, you have to buy a 15-cent NOR flash. Get it out of there. Okay. So for this electrical fuse thing, companies including Intel's together, the industry is spending about $500 million or more in E-fuse. It doesn't do anything. All it does is burn some metal. It doesn't need to be there. So, let's stop spending money there. And this part, there's a lot of what's called the embedded flash, making a flash module a little bit easier to do and embed that into an SoC. As far as I'm concerned, it's $250 million of expense. It doesn't need to be there. Get it out of there. Okay. So these are easy. The one that I will talk about that leads to the next slide that's interesting is that for the SoCs, last year we became the technology provider to store security ID for CCTV customers. So why is that? Well, if a set-top box is secure, CCTV's license fee for contents like ESPN, HBO, and Star is lower. So for a semiconductor technology, you have to figure out a way to lower your customers' costs. And there's really no two ways around it because it's very, very expensive. So what's the next thing? Okay. So if you think about ARM today being a powerhouse today, one of the things that's really helped the market, not just for ARM, but ARM being the principal beneficiary, is that we've had the smartphone. Okay. So what's the next thing to the smartphone? What we're working on is enabling mobile wallet. A mobile wallet is a wallet that means a mobile phone that has everything you need. So you don't ever carry a wallet anymore. Frankly, you don't carry your keys to the office. You don't carry keychains anymore. You just carry a mobile phone. And what we're working on is sort of 5 fingerprints worth of content that each can hold about 250 records of anything you want. Okay. Obviously, next generation will be more. Okay. And it's 100% secure. And why do people care? Well, one thing, you carry less stuff, and B is it's safer. Most of us today think of credit card as being pretty safe, and it is pretty safe. Okay. Credit card fraud in the Western world, the G20, is about 0.3%. It's still a lot of money, but it's 0.3% fraud. But if you move this to Africa, where last year the mobile phone credit, so you buy credit, and when you buy something, you just call the other person's number, and you send phone credit to the other guy. Okay. Phone credit in Africa last year was $100 billion. Guess what the fraud is? Percentage. More than 10%. Okay. $10 billion of fraud on $100 billion credit. It's phenomenal. Okay. But there's no ATM, there is no bank, there really is no cash, because people from places, they don't have the same currency. And currencies are hard to carry. People don't understand it, but they all have phone, thanks to Nokia, right? So you use phone to transfer credit. This is one of those crazy things where developing countries is actually moving faster than the G20 in how to use a phone. Okay. So my company is working on technology and memory that would allow us to safely store this. And if we ever lose our phone, just call the phone company. The phone company will destroy the content that's in it, so you'll never see it. Okay, so it's like when you lose your wallet, you call 10 different credit card companies, and call your DMV to get driver's license and things. You never have to do that again. Call one number, your telephone company, it's all gone. It's all completely erased. Now, one thing that's interesting about this business that's different from smartphone is that pretty much the smartphone is ARM and Android, Google, and a couple companies, Apple, obviously, that create the phone. All the work. Did I turn the power on? Okay, sorry. All the work is done in the data center. So if you think about a smartphone, not a lot of peripheral, not a lot of changes has happened in our life. Okay, in our interface, not life. Smartphone has helped our life, but it's not at the interface. With a smart, mobile wallet, our world is going to change a lot. And sorry about this, my fault. With a mobile wallet, we have to change how our credit card is swiped, how the passport is read, how a lot of things are done. So the car key, okay, you go into your car, you're not going to put a key in the keyhole and turn on the ignition anymore. Your phone sits down, car starts. So I think the mobile wallet for the first time is going to generate a change in all the peripheral things that are around us. What's happening at the bank, at the store, how we talk to each other, and how we exchange data. So I'm pretty excited about mobile wallet, and I was at Barcelona, a lot going on there in mobile phone. Another place where the embedded memory can write the cost curve down is SRAM. Okay. SRAM is about 50% of the SoC, big and small. Even in smaller products, memory SRAM is just very, very big. And the 6 transistor SRAMs are, they're in trouble. There's a lot of writing about it. You have a symmetry problem, you have a leakage problem. SRAM is just not doing really well. In addition, there's also a huge problem in soft error rate. The more memory you have, the more you're susceptible to soft error rate, yield, reliability. So some of the people in 22 nanometers are going to go with 8 transistors. The more aggressive ones from Intel are going to go to something like, FinFET. Okay. So the question is, is there another way? And we're working on another product that will be an SRAM product to do this because it fundamentally saves cost. Okay. This chip is an atom-based SoC, and I did it because Dr. Wang was here. But if you look at Oracle server, processor dissipates 140 watts. 50% of that power comes from the SRAM. So the question is, can you save 90% of that SRAM? Any questions?
The NPM, because there are so many companies now, eMemory, Kilopass, Silence, I know there's a lawsuit. but just name a few, right? I mean, there are many more.
Sure.
Okay. So my question is, do you think there will be consolidation because of so many? And also, question number two is, would there be any, in your opinion, because of the solid state memory, okay, would there be any new technology that will take the place of NAND?
Okay, so 2 questions, and the first one is easy. The market that we serve, it's hard for me to see it being how big are you guys these days in revenue?
$640 million a year.
Okay, so it's hard for me to see that we're going to be a $500 million industry. So I think the non-volatile memory business is going to consolidate. We don't have a monopoly in mobile phone the way ARM does, and ARM only got $600 million in revenue, so kind of a small potato if you ask me. Okay? So I think it has to consolidate. On solid-state memory, that's literally just, okay, so what's the next thing to NAND flash? I don't know, okay? A lot of people invest a lot of money into it, and I don't see anything promising right now. The one thing that people spend a lot of time working on is 3D stack.
But then it's still the same technology.
I'm not saying it's good.
Just the package.
Yeah, I'm not trying to defend it. I'm just saying.
So you're saying that NAND is still the way to go.
Yeah.
Thank you.